Hello, I'm Jeremy Rivera, your unscripted podcast host. I'm back again with Tom Malesic. I just couldn't get enough the first time around, but we will, for the sake of audience new now joining us, ask him our regular question is, why should we trust you as an expert in marketing? And then we're just going to go wherever it goes.
Fair enough. I'm Tom Malesic. I'm the founder and president of Easy Marketing, and you should trust me because I've published multiple books on marketing. This is my 30th year, which sounds insane to say, in digital marketing, and my 29th year, with Easy Marketing. So, I think, we've helped, probably 2,600 small businesses over that period of time. And we're just really great at small business marketing. And you can go just Google me and read the Google reviews, and you're going to be like, oh, definitely talk to this guy.
I like that the fact that you've stuck with your own stuff for 29 of those 30 years. What
Yeah.
was it in that first year that led you to being like, you know what? I'm going to set up my own marketing. It'll be easy, and we'll do it for the next 29 years.
So, you know how like a lot of founders have that like crazy origin story of that it just seems so absurd. You're like, no way did that really happen to you. Like I really have that story. So, I was working for a friend of mine that I knew in college, and he pulled me aside one day, and this is 1996, and he says, "Hey, a buddy and I, we're starting a website design company, and we need a sales guy. Would you be interested in doing that?" And I looked at him and said, "What's a website?" And and then he took me down in his little like grungy basement on his like super slow computer, the 14.4 baud modem, and it made sound, and then it said, "You've got mail." He pulled up a local hotel on it. He goes, "Do you think you could sell this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I could sell that." And so I was working for him for a little while, and then I went to a prominent business in the center of our little town. And she said, "Tom, I want to buy two websites from you." And I go back and I tell the owner of the company, "Great news, I just sold two websites." And he goes, "Why the heck would a jewelry store buy two websites from you?" And I said, "Well, for starters, first they're going to buy a regular website for their business, Sharp Jewelers." And I said, "They sell this lesbian jewelry, and we're going to build a website called Pride Jewelry, and they're going to sell little pink triangles and rainbow flags." And he said, "I don't think we can do that." And I go, "What do you mean?" And so he was too homophobic to take them as a customer. And eventually I said, "Do you want my laptop now, or do you want 2 weeks notice?" And he took my laptop immediately. I walked straight down the street and said, "Hey, good news, bad news. The bad news is he's not going to take your business. The good news is I just started my business 35 seconds ago, and I'd love you to be my first customer." And she goes, "Same price?" "Yep." And then she said, "Well, you were going to do the work anyway, right?" "Yep." She goes, "Done." So, yeah. So had he not done that, I might still be working for him. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I love
Crazy.
I love hearing SEO. I think I'm going to do an extract and just call it like SEO villain origin stories.
Yeah.
And because all of these folk, like I fell into SEO because of a customer support job. I was working at a customer support line for a hosting company for realtors. And we had a policy of you do not hang up the phone until they are done. Whatever their problem is, you stay on the phone until their problem is solved.
Okay.
And I love that policy, but they kept asking, "Jeremy, how do I rank better on Google? My website isn't showing up. I'm not selling any homes because of this website." And so in attempting to go, they gave us like a paragraph of like, "This is SEO." I'm like, "This is
Oh,
SEO? This is SEO." I'm like, that's not SEO. That's like one sentence that I can't, like, so I started digging into, everything that was available at the time, John Henshaw, reading AJ Cohn, got a copy of the SEO book, Aaron Wall, Matt Cutts, I followed
uh-huh.
him on Twitter. I,
Yeah.
I, I made the foot and mouth, Twitter handle at the time and just ask stupid questions and put my foot in my mouth all the time, and had to learn SEO for my day job. And jokes on them, because I ended up taking over their, 9-person marketing department after 2 years. And so really jumped up quickly to from just learning SEO to leading a team of 9 SEOs with 1,000 hungry realtors. Um,
And realtors are hard. Like
Realtors are
really
hard.
hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was definitely, that villain origin story moment.
Yeah, I think so many small business owners have that, right? It's I think I can do it better than my boss. I'm just going to do it on my own. And whether they're successful or not, isn't necessarily the issue, but they just jump out and do it, right? If you don't have that extreme fear of failure, you're willing to step out and do something on your own.
Yeah, it took me despite taking over that marketing team, it took me another 3 years to take on my first truly freelance project, and it was a Riverside tailor. I bartered with him. I said, "I'll get you to be the number one ranked tailor in Riverside, California, if you give me a suit." And he said, "Jeremy, you have a deal."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll take that deal.
um, he
I
still
hope it
ranks
was a
number
nice suit.
one. My suit doesn't still fit. I still have the jacket, but
Okay. Yeah. Have you outgrown your pants?
yeah, just a bit. And he's in California now. I left the state, so I can't exactly take him back.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love working with small business owners, right? Because we're all this high level of risk taker, and generally the business owners we work with have some level of like scatteredness, right? Like they're just like go 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 go. Great, you
So
take
many
this on.
hats.
I'm over here, and I just love that personality type of like they're just gonna make it happen. They don't know how, but they're willing to take a chance and they're gonna make it happen.
Do you think that AI skills and capability are unlocking more, or just adding new different hats for people to wear?
Yeah, they're just adding more hats, in my opinion. There's just so much more that you can potentially do, and I almost see the small business owner in two categories. Like I see some that are just like, I'm just going to do that myself, right? Because they have that initiative, but I think that's the small majority right now. I think the big majority it still lives in the yeah yeah. Can you just do that for me? Camp, right? At least that's my core customer. I think maybe the bigger the business becomes, right? Once you're doing, you know, 10 million, 20 million, like you have enough internal resources that are doing that. We tend to work with smaller businesses that they don't have that internal resource. They just want to kick it over to us. So
What are some of the internal automations, the processes that were just, okay, I gotta check this off. Okay, I gotta log into WordPress and I gotta update all the plugins and I need to go and update these meta titles and write these meta descriptions. What's the rote stuff that you have found processes to shortcut, automate, semi-automate, or delegate?
yeah, I think the biggest thing we've really automated is content. So, one of the things that we have a platform called Hats.ai, and we've built it. It gives you access to I don't know like 70 different AI models. So you don't just have to buy Claude on its own. Um, it we've created agents for each one of our customers. So we just keep training and training the agent of what does this customer do? What's their voice? How do they talk? What do they never say? What do they always say? So every time we create a piece of content, the client approves it. When the client gives us feedback, then we go, oh, put that into the agent so that it gets better and better and better all the time at creating content. Because it better understands that customer than any one of our team members does, because it's hard to know everything about every client. When you have 100 clients, it's hard to keep all that in your head, but the AI agent can keep that, in its head.
I would imagine there's other aspects of managing a team to manage that many clients. what's been your growth curve there of adding humans, some lessons learned in
Mm.
human acquisition?
Yeah, you know, I, it's always one of the hardest skill sets because a lot of times um, people interview differently than they show up, right? So I don't know how much I've really used AI in hiring other than, AI assisted job descriptions or cross comparison or do some research. But at this point, we kind of know a lot of that information for the people that we're hiring. Sometimes it's give them a test. So in other words, build me this, analyze this, tell me what's wrong here. Take this campaign and tell me what you would do differently. Um, so we try to do that kind of stuff within the hiring process. And it's hard, we all have mishires in it. And we have a lot of employees that have been here a long time, which is nice. But then it's frustrating when you have a couple mishires in a row. They're like, right? You know, uh, so I don't know how much I'm using AI in that process. That feels very human to human to me. We want to build those relationships. I view AI as helping humans more than replacing some of those interpersonal skills that I see in the interview process.
Still remember the first person that I had to fire. I figured
So,
out that he had faked tickets for completed tickets for 2 weeks and had built a paper motorcycle, papercraft motorcycle at his desk in that
oh,
time. I
good.
I could only be so mad because he had been. I worked for like our company got bought by a corporation, and I asked to elevate him to a senior position, and they stalled on the paperwork for 6 months. So he got bitter and like went from being a rock star to you know not caring at all. So
Yeah. Yeah, keeping people aligned within their position and keeping them engaged is always hard. We do that in a couple ways. We run on EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, and I'm actually an EOS implementer, so I teach other companies how to do this. But that people component is how do we make sure that we have them engaged in regular weekly meetings where they get to solve problems, right? Because there's nothing worse than being a team member and you see all these problems, you can't do anything about it, right? So we want them to not just identify problems, but be part of the solution of those problems, right? Because, that your manager can't see it all because they're not you, right? They don't see the problems. So the better that every team member can elevate something they see to be a problem to be a solved problem, the better, right? And then it really comes back to, if we just want to stay on this team member thing, is it comes back to core values. And I used to think, oh man, Jeremy, I thought core values are just a BS kind of thing. Great. Yeah, you just write them down. Who gives a crap? Like if people talk about them, like, oh, whatever, like, stick them on the wall. Who cares? Like waste of time to do. And then the more I realized that core values are your culture and, learn how to create good core values that are meaningful to the team member so that when you're saying this is the person who's successful in our company. Not they're good at their job, but this is who they are as a person. And when you have a whole company of the people that are who you are, when you hire the wrong person who isn't who you are, man, that person sticks out like a sore thumb. Like we had a project manager one time that we hired and she said something like, boy, Tom, I got to cover my ass. I was like, oh, so we don't really embrace the core value of easy to work with, happy to help, right? Like you're not happy to help. You're just trying to cover. Like you got to go. like, and nobody else liked her. And it was probably that reason, right? So it's in every company has their own culture. The goal is to figure out what your company culture is and how do those people kind of align to that. And that's a game changer. I think when companies can really master culture, the better. And nobody's perfect at it. Like, do we make mistakes? Yeah, I'm sure we do over and over again. But at least you have the intention and everybody knows the culture and everybody can say the core value and give an example of it. And we reward on core values, right? So like we pay out bonuses and, everybody gets to, once a week we have a core value shout out, right? So the person that gets to nominate somebody for the core value, they get an Amazon gift card, right? So It's fun.
I think that's important, especially like, because as you add, scale is the enemy of humanity, in my perspective. And so, like, you get the Amazon level, and humans are worth, they'll spend more repairing a robot than paying for they'll, oh, what was it? It was Amazon will pay for air conditioning for robots because they're more expensive to repair, but they won't put air conditioning into those same warehouses in the spaces where humans are because they don't get a return on that investment. And so it's
Interesting.
like,
Oh man.
like
Uh,
once you scale up to a certain point, unless you're intentional about it, these small little pieces get stripped away. And you have
yes.
to, it came up, I was interviewing Brandon Moon. He does end of life analysis for businesses. So he helps people exit their businesses either
Yeah.
because they're dying or because they want to retire.
Yeah.
And, most of us who have our own small businesses never went into it of like, how am I going out? What is this business going to end? And I'm like, freaking feet first, bro. He's like, okay, well, you're out feet first. What happens to your business after that? Because
Right.
there's that apple pie company in New York that's been making apple pie since 1910. That there isn't 120-year-old person running that business. 150
Yeah.
year old person. It's been
Yeah.
passed on, but they still have the same core values because the founder impressed. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is what's important to us.
Right. And the
Hold the
next
line.
CEO didn't screw it up. And that's the
Yeah.
important part. Let's just take Southwest, right? Like I used to be the biggest Southwest advocate. Like it was fun. The flight attendants were funny. It was easy to get on the plane. Like I had a whole, like I love Southwest. And now I got to pay for my bag. I have an order that I board in. I got to pick my seat. Like I hate it. I like now they're just every other airline, right? And like so in other words, leadership changed the culture, changed what I loved about them, and changed what every business book has ever written about Southwest. They're now like anti-Southwest, right? They should change their stock symbol from love to just like the next guy. Yeah.
I think it's just like maintaining the humanity, and I think for me, that's kind of my mission of like why I'm doing so much podcasting. And I've integrated it into other aspects of my SEO work
Mm,
where it's interview centric. Like I was working with Timothy Jackson. He does like agentic agency here in Nashville, but we were working together on it was permacast walls in Florida, and I interviewed the CEO and the guy that actually installs. And between those two, I could only use half of the content for the marketing side of things because the CEO said a bunch of stuff that shouldn't isn't marketing friendly, or just the way that I understood it, but didn't turn into marketing copy. But
okay.
knowing, oh, hey, we have a truck driver sitting out there for like 4 days. He can't bring in the stuff because we didn't, they didn't know that we needed this clearance when we went in, or we're looking for these type of permits, or these things are going to hold up the project. And, or oh, they always ask, can people dig under our concrete fences? I'm like, of course they can. We put it down, but that anti-dig feature they're always asking for. I'm like, is that on the site? They're like, no. Well,
Ah,
if everybody is asking for it
but
and it's not on the site,
that's a problem.
connect connect the dots.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you don't. Like you make these assumptions in your business, right? Because you have the hardest business to market is your own business, right? Because you get these blinders on. And I always tell people when they first start, I said, in the first 90 days, you're going to be more valuable to us than you can possibly imagine because you see all the stuff that we do that you're like, why do you do that? Right? We can't see it because, well, that's how we do it. right? So it's like to get that and that team member feedback, especially right at the beginning, to like they see your blind spots. Like you don't see that mustard stain on your shirt anymore. Like you just don't even notice it.
Yeah. And there's other things too. Like I just interviewed the owner of Ignite Bio, Jake Melendi, and he's like, people are leaving this money on the table because they're not calling back, like for especially for local service businesses. He did a study and it was like 2% of people followed up on a contact more than once. 50% didn't answer in the same day, and there was a really high percentage of people not following up at all.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then you go through all this work, and if you talk to like local small business owners, they've got a construction firm or whatever, they're
it's
like,
the
"Oh yeah, if
worst.
I just had more business, and could you do more marketing to get more leads?" I'm like, "Well, what are you doing with the leads you've got?" You know, the
I
one I
know.
helped with, I looked at their Facebook messages, and there were like 12 people that had messaged that had never been responded to. And one
Yeah,
of them turned into, once we warmed it up, $100,000 renovation job.
hmm yeah. It's that is so common in small business. I was talking to a small business owner today, and I was looking at his site, and I said, well, one of the things I would do is like your phone number's not, you know, on up in the top part in the navigation. Like I think that would help with conversion. That's kind of a standard best practice. We put your phone number up there. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, the last guy wanted to do that too. I don't really want people to call me. I was like, okay, like, all right. Uh, he's like, I just want him to email me because like he didn't want to answer the phone, right? Like, hey, my
Yeah,
people are busy. I don't want to answer the phone. Um, and I think that's a real common thing. He's a manufacturer, but probably higher tolerance to fill out a form or hunt for a phone number on a very specialty manufacturer business than it is on you trying to buy a fence for your yard, right? Like those consumer services are notorious for never calling you back.
there's a flower shop here in Cookville. She intentionally has not only removed the phone number from her site, but removed the phone number from Yelp, from Google My Business. You cannot call them. And she said, it's because I don't like the atmosphere of the phone ringing. I'm like, lady, I've been trying to buy flowers for my wife. Like, I can't get a hold of you. So, like,
Yeah,
I happened to be next door at the coffee shop and I walked across the street because I thought it was some sort of error. Like, there's this weird thing. Like, hey, I'm an SEO. I can help
definitely.
you get your phone number in more places. Like, no, I don't want it. And I'm like, well, I guess you don't want the business.
Well, I
Get that you can have a off-site answering service. You can develop an AI response, especially for something as simple as flowers. Like
yeah.
just an AI voice agent is now good enough to take flower orders, and then you get the message via text. They know when to come and get it. And you know how much they're going to pay when they get there. Like, what? Why would you do that?
Yeah. I think too every business owner kind of has their, let's call it their ceiling or their limitations of where they want to get to in their business or your comfort level. And I think a lot of times businesses get to the where they're comfortable and they're making enough money and they're putting enough money in their pocket. Like, do do I really want the headache of more, or is what I got good enough? Right. So, I think a lot of times as marketers, those businesses sometimes are a little more frustrating to us because we see the cool stuff and the way their business can grow. But sometimes that's not really what they want. And that's okay too. Right. Like you have a business and a lot of times we have a lot of lifestyle businesses, right? The smaller your business is, the more it's a lifestyle business, like that it doesn't really run without you, and you're just kind of happy with the money you're making.
Yeah, I think there is a good balance there and it goes back to that core values and just determining at the outfront, like, okay, because I've talked to founders, I've talked to small business owners, and, a few of them are like, I know that I could get the big fish and I could land it and get a bunch of people to carve it up, but I'd rather have, a good solid roster of people that I like working with because, that happened at an agency where they were providing content services for Indeed, and it was a huge contract, and they had to hire tons of content writers to do it. And then AI comes around and, oh, well, we're not doing Europe this month. Oh, yeah, we're not doing South America anymore. Oh, we're not doing Asia. Uh, we're doing half as much on North America. And so all of the infrastructure we created as an agency to process the whale got
Disappeared.
disappeared. Because at some point, as an agency, if you take on too much for one client, you become a vestige of that one organization.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. So in our strategic plan, that's a big part of our strategic plan personally. So in other words, my business is built on a large volume of small customers. My top 5 customers could leave tomorrow and I wouldn't have to fire anybody.
Nice.
So yeah, I had a boss when I was in college. I sold vacuum cleaners door to door, which it sounds ridiculous, but I was good at it and I kind of liked it. Um, and he would say, Tom, the tail can't wag the dog. So when you have one or two customers that dominate your whole business, that's the tail. It's just they're just wagging the dog, right? Versus the other way around, right? You're gonna bend over backwards. You're gonna do things that you shouldn't do for that customer. That's going to be to the detriment of your employees or your company in many cases, right? Because you feel so beholden to them. Oh my gosh, I can't lose them. I can't lose them, right? So then you start making stupid decisions. So yeah, I think it's always a big risk and agencies are notorious for it, right? They'll
Yeah.
have 7 customers and 3 of them are so huge. Any one of them goes, half their business is gone. And it's a model. It's just not a model I want to live in because I want to sleep at night and not that I sleep great at night anyway, but that's not the worry that I want to have. And
What
that's not
is
the
the
worry I want my team to have because I always want to, there's this concept that if you have a customer that's so miserable or treats your team poorly, um, like, why are you tolerating that customer just torturing you, your team, right? So in other words, if the phone rings and you see their name come up on caller ID and your whole team goes, ugh, like that customer's got to go. Like,
Yeah.
because who's more important, the customer or your team member? Your team member's more. Every day of the week, the team is more important than that customer, right? Because it's the team that's going to grow the business. You can get another customer, but having a high functioning team who has to work together, who knows that you care about them, that's more important than that customer who doesn't appreciate you and is mean to your team, you know. And we've all had to have that conversation with a customer who did something like totally stupid or inappropriate with a team member. I had a customer years ago, and he called and yelled at one of my employees, who this woman took such good care of him, and she's so nice. And he called and yelled at her, and she's calling me in tears. Oh my gosh, he yelled at me. I had to call him up. Like, this is a 65-year-old man who's owned a business for a long time. I'm like, look, you can't yell at her. If you have a problem, yell at me. I go, and now we're going to hang up, and you're going to call, and you're going to apologize to her. Okay, you're right, Tom. I'm really sorry. I was having a bad day. Good. You call her now. It's like, sometimes, customer coaching is just as important as employee coaching, but she knows and the rest of the team knows that I'm going to stand up for them in those cases. And that's just so.
I think these are the conversations that need to happen in the SEO space, it's hard because we're kind of fractured. There's freelancers, there's agency side, there's in-house SEOs, but like at the end of the day, like there needs to be some dignity, in the process. Like if you're coming to work for an agency, like knowing that the agency owner's got your back, knowing that the client is important but doesn't come above employees, like those are important values. Again, it comes back to that. And I think that's also like, that should be reflected in, how you front your company, and you do, I think that's the walking the walk, but you also have to say the walk that you're doing, because if you have good values but they're hidden, you're not doing as much good as if you like walk the walk and talk the talk and built a good reputation on both sides of like delivering good work and treating your people right.
Right.
That's going to come out in Glassdoor.
Eh, Yeah. Well, and sometimes keeping the wrong people for too long screws up your glass door, right? Like that's totally amazing. I had three people, oh man, 15 years ago, um, that said horrible things on Glassdoor. And it was unbelievable. Like, oh my goodness. But it happens, and I should have got rid of them sooner. One, that's the thing with employees. You have one or two toxic employees, and boy, it really messes up your culture. I think it takes like 10 great people to one person who's negative and toxic to destroy the culture, right?
Yeah. uh, Toxic is way more noxious than like
Yeah,
really good employees. It's crazy.
right. Well, like the guy you were talking about, like why should he put effort in? Everybody else now sees that guy not putting effort in. Why should they put effort in? This guy's
Yeah.
still getting a paycheck to do absolutely nothing, right? Right. So now he brings the whole group down because they watch our tolerance for that behavior. And that's a problem, right? And as a leader, sometimes really hard to get rid of that, like to make that change,
Yeah.
like super hard. Um, but you got to do it, you know. What's the phrase? Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah, that's
You
solid.
know.
Solid. And I think it also goes to kind of the authenticity and the value of humans right now, as so much AI slop gets put out there right now. Like people are, hungry for genuine human conversation. They would much rather, get somebody who's authentic and not super polished as like a cold sales call person rather than an AI bot or another spam email.
Yeah. And I think we've become, especially since COVID, we've become so comfortable with just send an email. Don't call them. Just send an email. Or uh, it always bothers me when I'm on a Zoom or Teams call and they don't have their camera on. Like like I wanna have that connection because how it would have been before is you would have come to my office or I would have driven to you, right? For most of our customer base was very local and then it started to become further out and further out. And the only way you really get that human connection is this video feed, right? And then when no, most people are pretty good at having the camera right in front of them, but some people do this, right? Their cameras, they're looking at you, but their camera's off to the side. And it's like, oh, come on, like, let's fix your camera. A lot of times with new team members, we'll even we do coaching on how you appear on camera, right? Like how much of the box are you taking up, right? Like this is your window of how everybody sees you, and that's so important. And if you're just like a little head way down in the background, or your background's terrible, like oh, like like my desk is a clean surface, but it wasn't before we got on this call, right? And I cleaned it up so that on camera it would be fine. You know, it's it's like having somebody come into your house and you got like dirty dishes every place, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because it's one of the challenges of remote, and like remote, hybrid, local, in office, as a small business owner. I'm sure you've navigated that as you've, grown over the years. So interested to hear, what your experience has been. Is it, do you have like a legit office space? You now yourself work out of your home? Does your team all work distributed remotely, same community? And, how do you instill core values while you're, working with somebody remotely?
It it's exponentially harder, right? Well, in many ways it's harder. In many ways it's easier, right? So the office drama is less because nobody's walking around stirring up the drama. Nobody's going out smoking by the trash cans, gossiping. Like that's less, right? Um, but it's harder to foster more team stuff. So when COVID hit, we sent everybody home, and and we already had some people who full time worked remote. Like they weren't local to us. But I have an 11,000 square foot office building that um, on a regular basis there are three, maybe four of us in the whole building. I now rent my conference rooms out, which I'm renting today, like because nobody wants to come back. But it also gave us the ability to one figure out how do you manage a fully remote team, right? And how do you change your meeting cadence so that you do have that face time with employees? So it's more intentional and it's a little harder from a management standpoint. So also let us hire people all over the country and quite honestly, all over the world at this point. So we have some great team members in the Philippines. We have a great team member in India that we never would have tried that before. I wouldn't even try to hire them outside of my little town. And your talent pool in your little town sucks for digital marketing, right?
Yeah.
But now I can hire, we just hired another, SEO person out of Florida. I think she's in, right? And, like I can, it doesn't make any difference if they're in Pennsylvania or they're in Florida or they're in Las Vegas. It does not matter.
My friend Michael McDougall in Nashville, he uses a co-working space, and which is like a good half solution, because then he's got his, the meeting room he can go into. I think that's a good solution for a lot of SEO freelancers, because there is, you know, we're always hustling. We are small business owners and we're consultants, so we're either got too much work or we should have something in the pipeline because our own bandwidth, you kind of
Yeah,
own your job, and that's hard. I think it's hardest to be an SEO consultant because that bandwidth of like how many retainers do I need to live comfortably, but how many can I lose? It's like an agency, but at a smaller scale because it's
right.
it's just your work. So, you know,
Right. Yeah, it's definitely hard being a solopreneur, right? Because you have all the distractions, because you're your worst boss, right? So because if your time management skills aren't phenomenal, if you don't have the ability to focus and push everything else out of the way, you're not going to get your work done. You're not going to make that sales call.
yeah,
And I think that makes it, I look at the solopreneur customers we have, and that's hard. You start to hire a couple employees, now they're kind of holding you accountable because you have to be ahead of them to give that they have enough work, right?
yeah,
And then you feel guilty if they don't have enough work.
yeah.
Plus you're losing money if they don't have enough work. Like I pay you regardless. So, um, yeah,
I
yeah,
guess
just
that's
that focused energy is so important. And I will say that I do feel that our team has just done a phenomenal job with being focused at home. Some people struggle with it, but for the most part, people are really good, right? And you kind of know who you have a problem with, right? Because we use Teams, and if I call you on Teams and you don't pick up right away, um, and if and you call me back and you go, oh, I was just in the kitchen getting a cup of coffee. If that happens frequently, it means you're never at your desk, right? So you start to figure out who's always on it and who's not.
As we kind of round out the interview, is there anything else in the SEO and marketing space? Usually I'm talking, far more about like on the front end and thinking about clients, but anything else that comes to mind, 30 years of experience in an industry, like anything else, that would be of value to somebody that's just starting out.
Yeah, I think when you're just starting out, like it's hard to figure out maybe what direction you want to go. So I'd say just be really open-minded. Like try lots of things. So you might end up within a specific niche, you might not. You might develop some great referral sources that kind of feed you leads. And I'd say just be really open. Be open to being lucky, right? That I especially at the beginning, like the more stuff I did, the luckier I became. And the more I recognized how lucky I was, the luckier I got. Right. And,
Yeah.
it's kind of this own self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So, especially when you're just starting a business, there's all this kind of like fear, doubt, and worry. I think that I watch small business owners just gets in their head what it's called imposter syndrome. Like they gave it a name. Like
Yeah.
I hope nobody figures out I don't know what I'm doing. Right. Even though you probably know what you're doing, but there's always so much to learn. And SEO, it's just changing so rapidly. So I think a lot of times in SEO, like people feel like they're behind. Somebody knows more. And sometimes I think that somebody knows more concept, propels you to keep learning and experimenting, trying new things. So just, give yourself a little grace and just keep, keep going after it because it's that, uh, if you look at the kids you graduated from high school with, sometimes like the super smart kids who were like the top 10 in their class are like abysmal failures in business, right? Because once you're out of high school, it's not about being smart anymore. It's about putting the work in and being tenacious and figuring it out. Right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I look at it like I never want to be the smartest person in the room. Like if in my company I'm the smartest person, we have a big problem. Like I want to hire people that are so much smarter than I am in their areas of expertise and just I'll be smart in the how do you run a good company area? How do you close good business? Right. So, figure out what you're really good at. And then it's just, then I want to hire around everything else. Like at the beginning, I built those first couple of websites and then, like, I, I can't even log into WordPress. Like, I don't know. Like, so no, because if I did, like, that'd really be a problem. Like,
You make a good point. At some point, your job is to find people that are better than you and surround yourself around those higher levels of talent. And,
yeah.
it
Yeah, that's what
is,
makes it. That's a huge success. What's what is it? You're the sum culmination of your 5 or 7 closest friends, right? You're the average. You're the average of them. So you take your closest friends and figure out how much money everybody makes. You're probably in the middle. It's so uncanny. Like just do it for lots of topics, and like you're in the middle, right? You have friends that are you know making a ton of money and you have friends that aren't really making any money and you're probably in the middle. And it doesn't matter how rich you are. It just keeps scaling, right?
I guess that helps against the temptation of like trying to keep up with the Joneses. Um, So to wrap things up, I'm curious, is there anything new y'all are doing at Easy Marketing? Any fresh resources, anything you putting things out for customers or anything new in your workflow as kind of round up this I love the direction of this because it's totally different from our first interview.
Yeah. Well, I
But
figured you didn't want to rehash last time.
yeah,
So,
no, the last time we're kind of external, but it's just kind of tapping back to the front. What have you been working on the front end?
um, yeah, here's something that's like new. Are you starting to get customers that are getting these like demand letters that their sites aren't California something compliant? It's called SEPA. I don't remember what it stands for. You starting to get those?
I haven't yet, but I've seen a couple of, warning signs here and there of certain regulations. First it was GDP in Europe.
Yeah, an
Your
ADA.
website is, if you might get sued for a disability access on your site if any of your buttons have blue text on a yellow background. Uh,
Yeah, the ADA stuff is like there's tons of rules. So we figured that out. We use a software tool to make the site compliant. But now we have that website consent, that little pop-up thing, you accept all or you want to make modifications. So you don't
yeah.
ever want to give them the decline button because you so don't want anybody to decline or you can't get any good metrics. So now we solved that problem last week, 2 weeks ago, right? I have a campaign going out right now to all our customers of, you should be aware of this. Here's what it's going to cost you to solve it. Here's what, and I've got an ongoing plan so that you always stay compliant, right? Like quick fix one time, monthly fee. I'll pay attention to it all the time, keep you safe. What do you want? And then all new websites that we're just building with that compliance building.
Well,
That's like new last week. So
that's good looking out. Give a final shout out to your brand as kind of wrap up the episode.
yeah, you bet. You want more information? Go to easymarketing.com. It's the letter E, the letter Z, marketing.com, and we'd be happy to chat with you.
If you want to see Tom's last interview with me, it's on unscriptedseo.com. You can find it through the search bar. I've been upgrading unscripted SEO with marketing hubs. Actually, during my last interview, I was upgrading and making sure that I've got referral articles down at the bottom that are related, added marketing hubs, breadcrumbs, all through the power of Claude Code. Folks, thanks for listening and stay tuned.